Client First V2. What's new? What's changed? How do I convert my V1 project to V2? If I'm building in V2, what do I need to know? This video will answer all of those questions. We will go over the V1 to V2 guide page and go through each item in this list. We'll understand what's new, what's changed, and how to convert V1 to V2. We'll be covering this by some explanation, and we'll also be going through a V1 template project to convert the whole thing to V2. So of course, this is really valuable if you want to convert a V1 project to V2. It's totally not necessary. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, this is a great walkthrough for that. Also, it's really good just to understand what's new in V2. A lot of people may not read all of the new documentation. They just want to know what's changed. What do I need to do for my next build to make sure I'm covering all the V2 updates? And this video is great for that. It's exactly what we're talking about. So let's now get into this conversion. First, we'll go through this page. We'll do a bit of an overview to understand what we'll do inside the template project. So let's do that. V1 to V2 guide. You can find this in the new Client First V2 docs and folders. We'll be looking at the folder structure, and this is a great way to understand any project and how it looks in terms of classes. So we'll talk about how folders can really help you in that conversion and also just general organization of your project. Components are better defined. We're actually not going to make any updates for this. This is a really nice conversion already from V1 to V2. Just a little bit of a better understanding of how to use this when creating new builds. Class types are better defined. Again, this is just a good mindset for new builds. We're not going to make any updates for this. This is a great update, page padding to padding global. We will do that. We're going to add the underscore in all of the sections. This is a change due to our new folders update. Folders are super powerful, and this update is specifically for that. Padding section size. This is a nice one to keep all of our section paddings the same. Not padding in general, not padding of our elements, padding of our sections. And we will absolutely make this update throughout the entire project. Heading style, H number. This is a new naming convention from our heading large, heading medium, heading small. We're now going and really mirroring the base tag heading classes with the base tag styles with this new heading class. We'll talk about exactly what that means, and we will definitely do this with the update. We'll talk about the new display inline flex utility class. We can remove this. It doesn't really need to be removed, but we will. And the new strategies for spacing. Once we do all the updates above, we will go through and update all of the spacing in the project. This is not something I recommend doing to fully built projects. If you have a project that's live and built or mostly done, I don't recommend that you go through and update wrappers to blocks. However, we will cover it in this video to show you the power and the difference between wrappers and blocks. And then when you go and build a new project, when you're totally live with V2 in your next build, you can use blocks exactly how we do it in this video. We will talk about the custom CSS and the global styles embed. We have some nice updates there. And these are new pages that we will not cover in this video. Okay, that's what we're doing. And now let's go into this Webflow build and let's get started with these updates. We are inside the Client First V1 template number 7, and we will go through each element. We'll go through each part of this HTML tree. We'll hit a bunch of pages, and by the end of this video, you should have a really good understanding of what has changed. The first item on our docs list is folders. Let's talk about that. I'll go in the Finsweet extension. We're going Client First. We're going in folders, and now we have our list of folders. Folders is a great way to see what is not exactly set up correctly, whether that's a misnaming or two class folders that can be combined, or classes inside the utility folder that should not be there. So with the new folders update, we use an underscore for our custom class folders and a dash for our utility class folders. So let's go and see exactly what that means. Heading dash extra large. This is going to be something in the utility class folder. There's no underscore. And if I go up a couple levels, we have home header underscore component. This is now a custom class. So I recommend with every single V1 build, go through this folder, custom classes, the utility classes, and make sure that these are in the right positions, that our utility classes don't have specific information about the team, the about team, or the about video, or the contact header, the donate contribute, event heading, all of this stuff. This is really specific classes for specific elements. Our utility classes should be utility classes for any element in the project. I can apply the container large anywhere, and this is going to be applied not to a specific element, but globally across the project. So we have to make sure we don't have any of these types of classes in the utility class folder. So if you see something like about team inside utility classes, make sure you go and rename that to about-team underscore. Let's look at what that means. So if I have about team, let's call this the text, this would be incorrect. I open up the utility classes and we see about team. This is definitely not what we want. I'll zoom out here so we can see everything, and we have team text. We don't want this. This is incorrect. So make sure you go through all of these and fix any of them. So I'll go and find this on the page. This is the about team text, and what I would want to do is go and add an underscore here. So about team underscore text. Make all of these updates so that now when we go into folders, this is considered a custom class, not a utility class. This template doesn't have any real examples of this because it was built already with this custom class component mindset. So now we have this correct. About team text. Awesome. Something that we will update later in the video is utility classes, section, all these section classes. We are going to change every one of these section classes to an underscore. And that's an important change. We're doing that later. So this part of the walkthrough folders, just check your folders. Make sure they're neat and organized. If they're not neat and organized, go and make it neat and organized. That's what V2 is all about. This extra layer of class organization using folders. So if you're using V2, you gotta have neat and organized folder structure. Excellent. Next, we're not doing anything for this. Components, it's not that components are changing in V2, we're just better defining them as folders. So no specific updates needed, just as you continue building, make sure you have this folder mentality in mind, not just components. Same with class types, no updates needed here. Now let's get into this page padding global. This may be one of the easiest updates of the entire project. Now what we have to do is go to the page padding. We're just going to rename this to padding global. Done. Now we have this ready to use as padding global. This is a V2 update. Let's look how beautifully this works with our folders. So we go into utility classes, we have our padding, and now you can see we have our global padding inside the padding folder. This is a padding class. This is not a page class. So you can see we have page wrapper, but we don't need page padding in there. That's why we made this change. So it works better with the folder structure. It's padding, let's put it in the padding folder. Excellent, done. Next, this is a big one. We're just going to do the first page for this update, but this should really be made site-wide. And it's a bit of a manual task, but again, it fits better into this folder structure. So let's go to section underscore identifier. All that's changing here is a dash to an underscore. This won't really make a huge impact in your project, but if you want to follow V2, especially moving forward, we highly recommend this update. So I'll go through each one of these and I'm going to add the underscore. I'll also zoom in for you so we can see a little bit better. And there we go. So that we have the section home header. I will again rename this with the underscore. Let's hit the underscore. We're going underscore and underscore. Nice. Oh, we do have some sections under here. Every section, underscore. And we'll look at how that looks inside folders just after this. Let me underscore these last few. We have the news section. Great. And then we have right here. Okay. So these have changed. Now, just as a note, this is a symbol name. All we care about is the class name. So let's look at what that update does inside folders. Now we have this new folder called section, and this is going to hold all of the sections inside the project. This is more of a navigator renaming folder update. This doesn't have any style updates in the project. And you can see we still have our existing sections folder. These are all the ones that we have to go and update. I won't sit through and update every single one of these in every page, but this is what you should do following V2, this underscore. Excellent. Okay, nice. So we're underscored here. We have this ready to go. And now let's go into the new padding section size. These classes were added to help keep our section padding more unified for sections, not just for general padding. This is not for padding of inner elements. It's specifically for the padding of sections. And we have 3 classes to make this happen. So instead of using something like padding vertical, padding large, we can use our padding section large. And we have a copy to clipboard button ready for you. When I go and click this, the 3 classes will copy to my clipboard and I can go and paste them into any V1 project. So I'll go and copy that to clipboard. And now let's go to the project and I will first close this and I'll paste it inside the structures. This is part of the core structure. And that's because it goes right in with these sections. So there we go. We have our padding section small, padding section medium, and the padding section large. And now I can go and use this throughout the project. There we go, there we go, and there we go. Cool. So now let's go back to the home page and let's go and make this update across everything. Now this one has its own custom padding. I do not need to go and replace every single section padding with the new padding class. This is really more of a replacement of using padding vertical, padding large. So we're going to maintain this. This is not to be changed right now. And same with this. This developer has decided to apply this type of padding to the project on the section, and that's totally okay. Here we go. Padding vertical, padding huge. So let's now go and call this the padding section large. There we go. Now we have padding section large here. I'll do the same thing with a padding section large. Let's cut this padding section large again. And this way, instead of having a lot of different options for our padding of sections, we're maintaining it to 3. And I think this is going to make a lot of projects look more unified. And let's hope we can have really unified looking sections. We have the padding section large. Okay, this does not have any padding, or it does here on the bottom. Now this is totally okay to keep as is. This is not what the padding section class is for. The padding section is specifically for top and bottom. When we go into the spacing block part of this video, I'll show you how we can replace this with a spacing block mentality. But for now, for the replacement of the padding vertical, padding large to padding section large, this update will not be made. And same with this. Okay, and let's change this here. Nice. Okay, love it. This is the update here, changing this to padding section large or medium or small, or you can add more of these. You can go and add padding section extra large or extra small or whatever you want, but it's a way to keep our paddings of sections unified. Next, we have our heading style H. Heading style H is a way to help us better unify all the headings of the project. So instead of having 8 or 10 or 12 different heading styles, we're going to strictly stick to H1 to H6. And these are the heading styles. So for every time that we use our base tag H1 styles, we can mirror those styles with our heading style H1 class. And same thing, we can go and copy this to the clipboard. We have 6 classes, so when I go and copy this, I can go and now paste it into the project. Again, I'll go to the style guide. Let's go not to the elements. Okay, the text classes are out here. Oh, heading classes, there we go. So I'll go and paste this in. We may not be able to remove these very easily. If our project is using these classes as this one is, we may not be able to make this update and just remove these classes. We can update them, but we can't just delete these styles right away. But we see the heading style H1, heading style H2. I don't want these to reorder themselves. Heading style H3, H4, H5, and H6. And you can see that all of these are the H2 heading type. Every single one is H2, and the styles are changing based on how we want to style this heading text. So there we go. Now these new classes are inside the project. All good. And let's see what that looks like to make these updates. So I'll change this heading X large. It's going to be the heading, well, this is going to remain the heading 1. It was a bit bigger there. We can go and apply heading style H1. And yes, this is, of course, I pasted this into an existing project. This is from a different project, and these styles are now mismatched. So what I actually would want to do, glad that I accidentally did this, I want to align these classes with these styles. So let's go and do that in the style guide page. Our H1 is a 3.5, 1.2. 3.5, 1.2. Our H2 is going to be a 3, 1.2. H3, 1.2, excellent. This is going to be a 1.75, 1.5. Okay, on to 4. We will do a 1.25 to 1.5. All right, on to 5. We have the 0.875, 1.5. 1.5. Oop, I did not update the right one there. 0.875 to the 1.5. And finally, the H6, 0.75. Okay. There we go. So now all of these classes are matching the headings, the base heading tags that we have in the project. This is an effort to lessen the amount of heading styles we have. And you could see that before, when I did heading extra large, it created a whole new style, a whole new heading style. And we don't want that. We want our H1s to look the same. We want our H2s to look the same, our H3s to look the same. And this is really a big effort to make sure that the headings are cascading down the page. We don't want a little tiny H1. We don't want an H1 in the middle of the page. We want our most important message, our largest message, on the top of the page. We want heading 2s to be the content within that heading 1, and the heading 3s to be the content within the heading 2. So that's why we've made this change, lower the total amount of styles in our headings, and just to try to have a nice cascading structure of our page content. So I'll go ahead and remove these, and let's hope we can actually remove those styles from the project. So there we go. Let's now go back to our homepage. I have this applied, but I don't need it. It's going to be the same style. But in the event that I wanted this to be a bit smaller, I can make this look like an H2, even though it's an H1. Let's see what we have here. This is our heading 2. Excellent. Now imagine I wanted this to be a heading 3 style. I can go here and do that. But still, it maintains the heading 2 for SEO, for search, for anything that has to do with Google. So this is what we're looking for. Excellent. Now this could be a good example of H3. Right here we have this text weight bold. The developer has decided to not use an H, but this is a great example of the cascading type of content design. We have our big text on the top. That's the most important. That's what this is all about. That's what we want in our H1. These sections start with an H2, and then there's more information in an H3. So if I were building this site, I would say this is an H3. And this is a great example of using these classes. Let's go and remove this. I have this new H3, but it's a little bit bigger than I want it to be. So I can go heading, style, H4. And there we go. Now I have the smaller text. It's based in the H4. And I have H3 for search and SEO and page structure. So this is a great example, great use case of being able to have the H3 here. This is a really good piece of text. It works in the cascade, and now it's styled like an H4. Okay, let's continue. That's the big update for heading style. Next, the new display inline flex. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is copy this to the clipboard, and now let's go and paste this into the project. This one's a little bit different. We're going to go and paste it into the style guide, and we're going to follow a special direction. So let's go and add this to the classes utility. Looks pretty good. This is actually a great utility. Yep. I'll paste this in here and we can see that we have a couple of elements in here. We need to take this HTML embed. We need to copy the classes or the class that comes with this, because this is not a style property that is supported by Webflow. We cannot apply display inline flex in Webflow. So we have to add this snippet to our global styles embed. So I'll copy this. I'll go and delete this HTML embed, and I'll go to the home page and copy this into our global styles. Cool, there we go. Now between the class that we pasted inside the style guide and this CSS snippet, we are now completely set up with the inline flex. Let's look at what this actually does and what it means for your project. My favorite use of the inline flex class is going to be when we have buttons, and those buttons will expand the entire size of the page. So let's go and do flex example, wrapper. Inside, let's do a flex example background, and then I'm going to do a flex example link with some text inside. Great, let's get a little visual just so we can see what is going on here. And this will be a bit of a button. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to work quickly here. Nice. Okay, so if this is flex, we can go and put some flex on here, some vertical, and look what happens to this button here. We can go like this, but maybe we don't want that, and we need this type of style in the project. I can go and apply the inline flex display, and there we go. This is now going to just span the actual size of the elements inside of them. So it keeps the flex properties, but we're actually working with inline child elements. So it acts like inline, but it maintains the flex layout capabilities. So this is what we are using inline flex for, and there we go. Okay, so now inline flex is in the project. Now we can go and remove the show utility classes, but we don't need to. I would not do that as I'm converting to V2 from a V1. But moving forward, just know that the client first V2 project has removed the show utility classes. We just didn't think they were useful. Instead, we kept the hide properties, the hide classes, and we added just one display class for a specific use case. Okay, we just covered some of the most important parts of the V2 updates, and we made those inside Designer. This next part of the video will cover spacing. We'll talk about the new spacing blocks, we'll talk about how we can update our wrappers to blocks, and we'll talk about why we would use one over the other. This is explained in full in the spacing strategy page, but we are going to see it live in action. I would not recommend doing this update if you're converting a V1 to V2. Leave your spacing wrappers. They're fine. They work. They are V2 approved. But as you're building new projects, as you're going into V2 for a brand new project, a new build, use the spacing blocks. They're great. They're easier. Everybody is loving them. So let's jump in. Let's see what this is all about. We're not adding any classes. These spacing wrappers are the same classes as spacing blocks. They share the same utility system. So let's go and see this is applied to a custom class. Let's go find a spacing wrapper. So let's go here, margin top, and there we go. Let's now convert this wrapper into a block. So instead of a margin and instead of wrapping an element inside of this spacing wrapper, we will use it just as a blank, empty div block. So let's go add this div block. We will do padding bottom padding, not margin. Margin is going to create a little bit of a weird look in Designer. Padding will give us a really accurate view of what this is. So this is a margin large. Let's go and do this padding large. Creating this nice space like a block. Now I will go and remove this margin. We can go and do the same thing here. This is medium. So I'll remove this spacing wrapper. Removed, removed. And now this will be a sibling element to the other elements in this section. And we'll go and remove the large to medium. Padding medium. And there we go. So now we have blocks instead of wrappers. This is going to create a few less layers in our project and a little bit easier of navigator use. So instead of hiding the elements inside spacing wrappers, we get a lot more visibility into the spacing as well as the element when we use this block. There we go. Let's now continue to look through this page. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we have good, no spacing wrapper there. As we continue, let's do this margin bottom. Great. So we will go and remove this margin bottom. I don't even have to look at it. It doesn't matter. And we're going to make this a padding bottom, padding extra large. Excellent. And when I go in here, now we have this padding bottom, padding extra large. So we will replace this margin bottom. It's creating some space between this text and these cards down here. So I will just drag this max width small. I remove the margin bottom spacing wrapper. And now we have the spacing block. And it works the same way. So this is a div block of spacing rather than something that's wrapping the element. This can be made to any project. It does not have to be made to any project, but I would definitely use it for new builds. I can't say that enough. You will really start to like this once you start to use it. Let's look at the spacing block for creating different type of spacing inside our sections. Earlier in the video, we came across this section, the news section. And look what we have here. We can actually go and remove this padding bottom class. And we can use instead a spacing block at the end of the content. So I will go and remove this padding bottom. And actually, I don't even have to do anything else. It's just not being wrapped. There we go. So this is going to create the same exact effect that we just had. There is no difference, but instead of creating those extra nested layers, a little bit less visibility in Navigator, we have this nice visible view into our content and the spacing that interacts with them. Another cool thing we can do with spacing blocks is create different padding on top and bottom. When we are doing our padding section classes, it has to be equal top and bottom. So it's 3 rem top, 3 rem bottom, 5 rem top, 5 rem bottom. If we wanted 3 rem top and 8 rem bottom, we can do that with these spacing blocks. So watch what I do here with the padding bottom huge on the bottom, and then the now padding, let's do medium. And there we go. So now we have our news, unique spacing on the top, still inside the global utility system. We're still sharing our values throughout the project, but we don't have to have the exact same for top and bottom. So we have different top, different bottom, both using the spacing block strategy. So as you can see, spacing blocks have a lot of different use cases, and we think they're very powerful and they should be used moving forward. Spacing wrappers, there is a good use case for this. We're not going to cover this deeply in this video, but spacing wrappers is really good for creating grid layout spacing with a custom class and then having different spacing within that grid layout. If If you want to read more about that, definitely go and check out the spacing strategy page. It covers this in full. Great. And next, the global styles embed page. This is something I would only recommend doing if you are more advanced and you have a good understanding of what these styles are doing. You can see in this project, we have a global styles. And inside this global styles, it's all the custom CSS that we've added in V1. If you want to, you can go ahead and copy everything from V2 and paste it right in. Just be aware that if you do this, you may be overwriting some classes or some custom things that were added afterwards. So just be aware. If you're doing this, make sure you know what you're doing. If you're not comfortable with this, just don't do it. There's not a need. The only thing we need is the inline flex, which we added earlier. I will show you what it looks like to go and do this though. So I feel confident that this will not have any problems. It doesn't look like there were any updates made after the fact, after this was created. This looks like standard V1 classes. So if that's the case, I will go and paste this in. You can see we have a couple of nice important tags added to our margin and padding classes. This is to prevent any CSS specificity issues. We had a problem in V1 where a lot of people didn't understand the CSS specificity part of it, so this is going to help with that. If you don't know what that means, we have some video content and a whole page about CSS specificity. Again, a little bit extra power with our hide classes. Make sure these never are overwritten. And another important update here, certainly important, we moved this style to the global styles embed. It's no longer in site settings, it's inside the global embed. This is what we want. This is much more efficient and effective, and we've made that update in V2. Okay, and there you go. I'm glad I did this. It broke. So this template was using one CSS style that we have commented out. So if you do this, and this is what you see, I will show you how to fix that right now. I will go into this code editor and I will uncomment this code. This code is going to allow you to inherit the text style and some typography type styles to all of these elements, including the A, which is a link. So watch when I go and save this. Now this is back to normal. So this is something that you can toggle on and off depending on your project and your level of understanding with that CSS snippet. So there we go. This is a nice overview of V1 to V2. I'm not going to do the entire project. That'll probably take an hour or two to go through every single one of these pages and every single element. But the concepts that we covered here are exactly what you need to know when you are using V2, when you're migrating, when you're building a new project, when you're using Client First. That's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot about V2 and why we made these updates. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're inside Slack. We are inside a bunch of different places in Twitter, wherever you can find us. We will love to help you in your Client First exploration.